Thank you for joining me for Who Do We Think We Are Part 2. In Part 1, I used two young ladies to describe how our societies, or the factions of societies that we believe in or hold faith in a sense, don't really care of what we want to happen in the future or in certain parts of the world. The young girl, Victoria, gave us an explanation of how our wealth is sort of falsified in our deception of what we owe as a person or a country, even though that wealth that she was talking about is false, because we have gotten ourselves into believing we are that corporation that owes this money, or a part of that corporation that owes this money. In one of my earlier videos, I did show you that you have a hidden identity that is using your name, and you think you are, and you pay all the bills for it and everything else, but it's not real. That person or that entity is not real. It's dead. It's not you, but you pay its parking tickets and you pay its fuel. It even owns your house if you are a homeowner, or you think you're a homeowner in a sense. But that's another topic, and I'm not going to really go into that realm of since we are at this level. I hope you understand at this point that you are not who you think you are as a site of commerce. Yes, in a sense, you do need that entity to deal in this part of the world that you're in, but it's on a whole, it's all false. It's made up, and the sooner that you know this, the sooner you'll understand, or the quicker you may understand that Satan has control over everything. Okay, that's what I want you to get. If you're not a Christian and you don't believe in Jesus Christ, and you can't understand that Satan has control of all these things, you gotta watch some more, okay?
Remember Live Aid in 1985, that symbol of concern and generosity? Did you know that during that year, the hungriest countries in Africa gave twice as much money to us in the developed world as we gave to them? There was another famine last year. Perhaps you were one of those who took part in Red Nose Day. Did you know that before that day was over, the equivalent of all the money that Comic Relief had raised in Britain, about £12 million, had come back to the rich countries? For every day this amount is given by the poorest to the rich has interest payments on loans that most of them never asked for or knew existed. In other words, contrary to a myth long popular in the West, it's been the poor of the world who have financed the rich, not the other way round.
Congress tells the Treasury Department the Fed will loan us $1 billion, print $1 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds. So for $1,000, they print $1 billion of bills, of bonds. Those bonds are given to the Federal Reserve, $1 billion. Now the Federal Reserve in bonds plus interest. The Federal Reserve then gives the bonds to the government to pay its bills. But watch me, because you're not thinking. The government needed $1 billion. They borrowed $1 billion. But the Federal Reserve said, we'll loan you the $1 billion plus interest. But it only prints the $1 billion. So the interest payments are never created and put into the system. So how is the government ever going to pay them back?
You don't think that it's, what the national debt is
The
important?
national debt
That means
measures the wealth.
The national debt, don't we have to...
The wealthier we are.
The larger the
The national debt,
the wealthier
it's an
we
indication
are.
of the wealth of the country. You're right.
So the more you owe, the more you're worth?
I'll say it slowly, okay? That here.
Can you explain to the viewers that...
No, look, Jan, come on, get real. Jan, get real. I can't explain. If you shut up,
debts.
Jan, I think this interview's come to an end. Someday, when you shut up and you want to talk about something, let's talk about it. Thank you. Well, stop. We're done.
Let's talk
Get out of here.
Let's just change the subject. We don't talk about something else.
Listen, you get the fuck out of here. I'll throw you out the window. Out.
So if they had telephones then, the phone would ring from Abraham Lincoln to Jefferson Davis in the South and say, President Davis, this is President Lincoln, and we need what you have. And President Davis says, ain't our problem, it's your problem. Well, it's your problem now because we're going to come and get you. And we're going to take everything you have, and we're going to call it the Civil War and say it's over slavery. Well, it's a well-known fact the governor of Maine had 65 slaves. So
it wasn't over slavery.
It wasn't slavery. I mean, that's a nice history thing, but that's just another rewrite of history.
But it was a commerce.
It was commerce. It's always about money. In that context, Lincoln then suspended the Constitution of the United States in 1861, and the Civil War was declared. Now, with that suspension, it comes in what we now know as executive orders. If you trace back executive orders, the first one was written in 1861. The only way they can write an executive order then and now is if the Constitution of the United States is suspended. So, therefore, we come back modern day. If you mention your constitutional rights one more time in my courtroom, I'm going to put you in jail for contempt, because there is no such thing. Okay? So now we need a new pledge. Lincoln, to his credit, figured it out, I believe, before the end of his term. And that's why he was killed. First thing he did was print greenbacks. And he was going to repudiate the debt and issue currency of the United States with no interest. Okay? That was his reorganization.
Yeah.
That was his reorganization plan. Okay? A bullet got in the way of that. Interestingly, 100 years later, another president tried the same thing, and he got killed too. His name was Kennedy. That's how all that ties together. Kennedy printed U.S. notes, and he was going to issue those. Lyndon Johnson's first executive order was to rescind that order that Kennedy had written to issue U.S. notes. Now, if you go then to 1860 and 61, we got to make a new pledge. We pledge all the assets of the South. And in that comes the ratification of the 14th Amendment. In 1871, there's a government called, a corporation called the Government of the District of Columbia, February 19th, 1871. In 1878, the name of that corporation is changed to the United States. Now the 14th Amendment is here. The government of the United States, a corporation is in place, and all the districts. You all live in the District of Washington, Western Division. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I did know that, but that kind of terminology is totally foreign to us.
Yes, yes. We don't think anything of it, but you have to look at Washington, District of Columbia. Okay? Mm-hmm. What is Columbia? What is that? Anyway, to get back to our bankruptcy story.
Yeah, that is a good question. What is that?
They pledge all the assets of the South. All the gold, all the agriculture, everything. The South was paid for. They had everything. The North was bankrupt because that was where all the industry was. There was nobody, it was cold, there's no money, the bankers are squeezing them. So you go into bankruptcy again, you pledge all the assets of the South, and now you jump forward to September 17th, 1929. 45 days before October 29th, 1929. When everybody knows what happens then, the stock market crashes. Roosevelt gets elected in 1932, and the first thing he does for the first approximately 100 days is rewrite everything in this country. He stacks the Supreme Court to back every decision he makes as constitutional, but there's a problem. There's got to be another pledge made because we're still in reorganization. Now, if they've pledged the South, and in 1929 they recaptured all the land because all the farmers went bankrupt, and the banks held all the paper, what is there left to pledge? The only thing left is the people, 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 is the people.
Okay. At this point, you're probably saying, what does this stuff have to do with me? It's over 250 years old, these issues, and nothing could be further from the truth because, first of all, these issues relate more than 3,000 years or even longer than that. God sent his son for us to get it. You know, like there should be no guesswork in this anymore because of what he did as far as ending his son here. We have denied the one creator many, many times. Although we've done this, he still loves us. And loves us more than anything we can imagine. He sent his only begotten son because we had no understanding of Satan's control. And still, Satan is still able to weave his web of deceit. And Jesus came to give us this warning of when judgment would come. We are to be prepared and to call on him for salvation. I hope you understand this. If you don't, continue watching. There's more.